First contact in the void, the patrol cruiser. Stellar Harmony drifted through the outer reaches of Sector 794, its sensors sweeping the darkness for any signs of activity. Commander Varric stood at his station, his four eyes scanning multiple displays simultaneously. The Zephyrian had served the Galactic Consortium for 200 cycles, and these patrols had become routine. Nothing ever happened this far from the trade routes. His second in command, a crystalline being named Shara, pulsed with a sudden burst of amber light. "Commander, we have an anomaly. Energy readings that don't match anything in our database. The location is approximately 3 light minutes ahead." Varric's antennae twitched with interest. In all his years of service, genuine anomalies were rare. The consortium had mapped every corner of known space, cataloged every phenomenon, documented every possible threat. "Adjust course to intercept. Let's see what we're dealing with." The Stellar Harmony changed direction, its engines humming as they accelerated toward the mysterious readings. As they approached, the sensor data became increasingly bizarre. The energy signatures were unlike anything Varric had encountered. They seemed to bend the very fabric of space around them, creating ripples that his instruments struggled to interpret. Then, without warning, space itself seemed to fold. A massive vessel materialized from nothing, not through a jump gate or wormhole, but through some unknown method that left Varric's crew stunned. The ship was enormous, easily twice the size of their patrol cruiser, with a design that seemed both primitive and advanced simultaneously. Its hull was dark metal, scarred and pitted from countless micrometeorite impacts, yet it bristled with technology that made no sense to consortium scientists. Unknown vessel. "This is Commander Varric of the Galactic Consortium patrol ship Stellar Harmony. You have entered consortium space. Identify yourself and state your intentions." For long moments there was only silence. Then a transmission came through, but it was in no language the universal translator could recognize. The sounds were strange, melodic yet harsh, with patterns that suggested intelligence but remained incomprehensible. Shara worked frantically at her console, her crystalline form flickering through dozens of colors as she processed data at incredible speed. "Commander, I'm detecting biological life signs aboard that vessel. Carbon-based oxygen breathing. But the configuration is unusual. They appear to be bipedal with only 2 arms. Only 2 arms. Varric found that odd. Most successful spacefaring species had evolved at least 4 manipulator appendages. How could a species achieve interstellar travel with such limited physical capability? The unknown ship suddenly broadcasted again, this time transmitting mathematical sequences, physical constants, and basic chemical formulas. They were trying to establish a common language, starting with the universal constants that any spacefaring civilization would understand. "They're attempting first contact protocols," Shara observed. "But these protocols are different from consortium standard. They're more aggressive in their approach. They're not waiting for us to establish parameters. They're pushing their own." Hours passed as the 2 ships exchanged increasingly complex data streams. Slowly, painstakingly, a basic translation matrix emerged. When communication finally became possible, the message that came through changed everything. "Greetings. I am Captain Maria Rodriguez of the Earth vessel Perseverance. We represent humanity and come in peace. We have been searching for other intelligent life for 300 years. You are the first we have encountered." Varric felt all 4 of his hearts skip a beat. Earth, humanity. These names appeared in no database, no historical record, no archaeological survey. The consortium had records stretching back 50,000 cycles, encompassing over 300 member species, and contact with thousands more. How could an entire spacefaring civilization exist without their knowledge? "Captain Rodriguez, I am Commander Varric. Your species is unknown to us. How is this possible? The consortium has mapped all of known space." The response carried what Varric would later learn was human amusement. "Commander, space is vast. We developed in what you apparently call the dead zone, a region your people seem to have written off as uninhabitable due to radiation storms and gravitational anomalies. Those same conditions forced us to develop unique technologies to survive. The dead zone. Varric knew it well, or thought he did. It was a region of space torn apart by ancient supernovas, filled with radiation that would kill most known species in minutes, gravitational fields that could tear ships apart, and electromagnetic storms that made navigation nearly impossible. The consortium had declared it off limits millennia ago, You survived in the dead zone. How? We didn't just survive, Commander. We thrived. When your homeworld forces you to adapt or die from birth, when every breath could be your last, when radiation is just another Tuesday, you either get very good at survival or you don't survive at all. Humanity chose to get good at it. The human captain's words carried a weight that made Varek uncomfortable. This was not a species that had developed in the comfort of a garden world, protected and nurtured. This was something else entirely. Captain Rodriguez, would you be willing to meet in person? We have much to discuss. Of course, Commander, but I should warn you. Humans might appear somewhat unusual to you. We evolved on a high-gravity world with a single star. Our biology is likely quite different from yours. The meeting took place aboard the Stellar Harmony, in a specially prepared chamber with atmospheric controls to accommodate different species. When the airlock opened and Captain Rodriguez stepped through, Varek had to suppress his instinctive fear response. The human was smaller than him, standing only 2/3 his height, but she moved with a predatory grace that set off every alarm in his evolutionary history. Her forward-facing eyes marked her as a hunter species, something the peaceful consortium races had long ago evolved past. Her skin was a strange brown tone and hair covered her head in a way that seemed both primitive and oddly practical. But it was the way she moved that truly unsettled him. Despite the lower gravity of his ship, she didn't bounce or struggle as most species would. She adapted instantly, her muscles making micro-adjustments that spoke of a control over her body that was almost supernatural. When she smiled, revealing white teeth that were clearly designed for tearing meat, Varek had to remind himself that she had come in peace. Commander Varek, thank you for receiving us. I know we must seem strange to you. Captain, you said you've been searching for 300 years. How many ships does your species have exploring? Maria's expression became thoughtful. The Perseverance is one of 12 deep exploration vessels. We have about 3,000 ships in total, including our defense fleet. Not much compared to what I'm seeing from your consortium, but we make do with what we have. 3,000 ships. From a species that had developed in isolation, in the dead zone no less, that was remarkable. But Varek was more concerned about her mention of a defense fleet. You maintain military vessels? The consortium has not needed true warships for 5,000 cycles. We settled our last internal conflict long ago. Maria's expression darkened slightly. We've never had the luxury of peace, Commander. The dead zone isn't just harsh, it's actively hostile. There are things in that radiation-soaked darkness that would give your worst nightmares nightmares. We learned early that if you can't defend yourself, you don't survive. Things? What things? The human captain pulled out a data pad and showed him images that made his violet blood run cold. Creatures that shouldn't exist. Living machines that fed on energy itself. Parasitic organisms that could take over entire ships, transforming them into breeding grounds for more of their kind. We call them the Devourers. They're not from our galaxy, we think. They came through rifts in space caused by the supernovas. We've been fighting them for 2 centuries. That's actually why the Perseverance is out here. We were pursuing a Devourer swarm that escaped our containment. They headed in this direction about 6 months ago. Varek felt his antennae go rigid with fear. A Devourer swarm heading toward consortium space? His people had no experience with such threats. No weapons designed for actual warfare. They had peacekeeping forces, certainly, but nothing that could handle what Rodriguez was describing. How do you fight such things? Maria's smile was grim. With weapons that would horrify you, Commander. Humanity learned long ago that when facing extinction, mercy is a luxury you can't afford. We developed weapons that kill on the quantum level, viruses that eat through any known material, bombs that create temporary black holes. We became the monsters that monsters fear. The revelation hung in the air between them. The consortium had found new neighbors, but these neighbors were nothing like them. Humanity hadn't developed in peace and prosperity. They had been forged in the crucible of constant survival, shaped by threats the consortium couldn't imagine. Captain, I need to report this to the Consortium Council immediately. The threat you described, these Devourers, if they're heading our way, they are, Maria confirmed. Based on their trajectory and speed, you have maybe 2 weeks before they reach your outer colonies. Commander, the Consortium needs to evacuate those worlds. You don't have weapons that can stop them. But you do? Maria nodded slowly. We do. And despite what you might think of us, we're not monsters. We're survivors who've learned that sometimes, to protect what you love, you have to become what you fear. The Perseverance isn't just an exploration vessel, Commander. It's a battleship designed to hunt the things that hunt civilizations. If you'll accept our help, we'll stand with you against the Devourers. Varric made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Yes, Captain Rodriguez, we accept your help, but I fear the consortium isn't prepared for what's coming. Maria's expression softened slightly. No one ever is, Commander, but that's why we're here. Humanity has spent 3 centuries preparing for threats like this. Maybe it's time we had someone to protect besides ourselves. When Predators Meet, the Consortium Council Chamber had not seen such chaos in 5 millennia. Representatives from 300 worlds argued, debated, and panicked as the reality of the situation sank in. On the main display, the tracking data showed the Devourer swarm's approach, a red tide of destruction heading straight for their outer colonies. Counselor Thrain, an ancient being whose species had helped found the Consortium, raised her voice above the din. Silence. We must have order if we are to survive this crisis. She turned to the holographic projection where Captain Rodriguez and Commander Varric waited. Captain Rodriguez, you claim your single ship can stop this threat? Maria stood calmly despite being the focus of 300 alien species' attention. Not stop, Counselor. Slow down. Perhaps destroy a portion of them. The Perseverance is powerful, but this swarm is larger than usual. However, I've sent a message to Earth. Our 3rd fleet is already mobilizing. 40 ships will arrive within 10 days. Only 40? The Consortium peacekeeping force had 8,000 vessels, though none were designed for real warfare. With respect, Counselor, you're thinking in terms of your ships. 1 human battleship is worth approximately 200 of your peacekeeping vessels, in terms of pure destructive capability. We don't build ships to police. We build them to end threats permanently. A new voice entered the conversation, harsh and skeptical. Counselor Krex, a warrior species that had joined the Consortium only recently, challenged her. You speak boldly for someone whose species hides in the dead zone. How do we know you aren't the real threat? Maria's expression didn't change, but something in her posture shifted. It was subtle, but every predator species in the chamber recognized it. She had gone from diplomat to warrior in an instant. Counselor Krex, would you like a demonstration? Before Krex could respond, alarms began screaming through the chamber. On the main display, a new contact had appeared at the edge of the system. It was massive, 3 times the size of the Perseverance, and its energy signatures were unlike anything in the Consortium database. That's the UES Retribution, Maria explained calmly. Our flagship. Admiral Thompson thought you might need convincing, so he came personally. The Retribution hung in space like a monument to controlled violence. Its hull was not just armored, but layered with reactive plating that seemed to shift and move. Weapon ports covered every surface, and the energy readings from its main gun were causing nearby Consortium ships to evacuate to safe distances. Admiral James Thompson appeared on screen beside Maria. His face was weathered, scarred, and his gray eyes held the weight of countless battles. Esteemed counselors, I've been fighting the Devourers for 50 years. I've lost ships, friends, and entire colonies to them. We're offering our help not because we need anything from you, but because we know what it's like to face extinction alone. No species should have to learn the lessons we learned the hard way. Counselor Thrain studied the human admiral. What would you have us do? Evacuate your outer colonies immediately. Move all military assets behind the line we're establishing. And most importantly, stay out of our way when the fighting starts. Your ships aren't equipped for this kind of warfare, and friendly fire incidents would be tragic. You're asking us to abandon our people to strangers, Krex accused. Thompson's expression hardened. No, we're asking you to let us do what we do best, so your people survive. Every human ship carries evacuation pods designed for mass rescue operations. We learned long ago that saving lives is just as important as ending threats. We'll get your people out. The debate might have continued for hours, but fate had other plans. The sensors detected the Devourers arriving earlier than expected. They emerged from hyperspace like a plague of metal locusts, thousands of them, each one a perfect killing machine that consumed matter and energy to replicate itself. The Consortium peacekeeping force moved to intercept, despite warnings from the humans. Their weapons, designed to disable and capture, not destroy, were useless against the Devourers. The creatures absorbed the energy beams, using them to fuel their own growth. Within minutes, 3 Consortium vessels were overwhelmed, their hulls being dissolved and converted into more Devourers. All Consortium vessels, retreat immediately, Maria commanded, her voice cutting through the chaos. Retribution, Perseverance, engage at will. Thompson, let's show them how humans deal with existential threats. What happened next would be remembered as the moment the galaxy learned that humanity had evolved into something beyond their understanding. The Perseverance and Retribution moved with a coordination that seemed impossible, their weapons creating a symphony of destruction that defied physics as the consortium understood it. The Perseverance fired first, its main gun releasing not a beam or projectile, but a wave of distorted space-time that simply erased a section of the Devourer swarm from existence. Not destroyed, not vaporized, but removed from reality as if they had never been. The Retribution's response was different but equally terrifying. It launched what looked like small missiles, but when they detonated, they created miniature black holes that lasted just long enough to consume hundreds of Devourers before evaporating. The precision required to create and control such weapons was beyond anything the consortium had imagined possible. But the Devourers adapted, as they always did. They began to scatter, trying to overwhelm the human ships with sheer numbers. That's when the true horror of human warfare was revealed. Maria spoke calmly into her communicator. Deploy the Grey Goo protocol. Authorization Rodriguez Alpha 77. From the Perseverance's hull, clouds of microscopic machines emerged. They spread like a silver fog, each nanomachine programmed with one directive: consume and destroy anything with a Devourer signature. The swarm met the cloud and the Devourers began to dissolve. Their own consumption-based biology turned against them. Counselor Thrain watched in horrified fascination. You fight monsters by becoming monsters. Thompson's response was blunt. We fight monsters by being better monsters than they are. That's how survival works in the dead zone. You either become the apex predator or you become prey. The battle continued for 6 hours. When human reinforcements arrived, 40 ships appearing in perfect formation, the outcome was no longer in doubt. Each human vessel was a masterpiece of controlled destruction, wielding weapons that bent the laws of physics to their will. But what impressed the consortium most was not the weapons, but the discipline. Human ships rescued 17 consortium vessels that had been damaged in the initial attack, their crews working with an efficiency that spoke of long practice. They evacuated 3 colonies that were in the swarm's path, saving over 2 million lives. They fought with ruthless efficiency but never forgot their humanity. When the last Devourer was destroyed, the human fleet stood victorious but battered. 2 ships had been heavily damaged and the energy expenditure had been enormous. The consortium fleet, largely intact thanks to human protection, surrounded them in a gesture that could have been threatening or grateful. Counselor Thrain spoke for all of them. Captain Rodriguez, Admiral Thompson, we owe you a debt that cannot be repaid. You've saved billions of lives. What can we offer in return? Maria and Thompson exchanged glances. We don't want payment, Counselor, but we would like something else: partnership. The dead zone has made us strong, but it's also kept us isolated. We've survived alone for 3 centuries. We'd like to try something different. You want to join the consortium? Not join, Thompson corrected. Partner with. Humanity has learned hard lessons that the consortium needs to know. You have knowledge and resources we lack. Together we might be able to do more than just survive. We might be able to thrive. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then Counselor Krex, the skeptic who had challenged them, spoke. I was wrong. You aren't the threat. You're the guardians the galaxy didn't know it needed. I vote for partnership. One by one, the other counselors agreed. It was unanimous, unprecedented, and would change everything. In the days that followed, as human and consortium ships worked together to repair the damage and strengthen defenses, cultural exchange began. The consortium learned about human music, art, and literature, all shaped by constant struggle but somehow still beautiful. Humans learned about consortium philosophy, their long peace and their achievements in science and exploration. But perhaps the most important exchange happened in a quiet moment between Maria and Varric. They stood together on the observation deck of the Stellar Harmony, looking out at the combined fleet. Your people terrify us, Varric admitted, but I think that's what we needed. We'd grown comfortable, complacent. We'd forgotten that the universe has teeth. Maria smiled sadly. And we've never been allowed to forget it. But maybe that's ending now. Maybe together, we can be something neither of us could be alone. What's that? Safe enough to dream of something more than survival. The galaxy had changed. Humanity had emerged from the dead zone not as conquerors but as protectors, shaped by hardship into something powerful and dangerous, but still capable of hope. The consortium had gained defenders with the strength to face any threat, and in the vast darkness between stars, for the first time in centuries, humanity was not alone. The real story, however, was just beginning, for in the dead zone things stirred that even humanity had only glimpsed. The Devourers were just scouts for something far worse, but now the galaxy would face it together, with humanity's strength and the consortium's wisdom united. The shadow that humanity had emerged from had made them strong. Now they would stand in the light, not as monsters or saviors, but as partners in the greatest adventure of all, survival and prosperity among the stars.